Hey guys, we're going to be looking at this particular guitar today. This is a guitar that I found far away and in a bit of a bad state. This is, of course, a Guild Artist Award. So it's really been through the wars. It had a history, even though it's only from the early 90s. It's not like a 60s or 50s instrument, but it seems to have, been through the wars. You can't really see the dents. There's a few dents. It's just been played. All the hardware is tarnished. And the Grover Imperials, and they all look pretty worn. So this guitar has definitely had a playing career, but it's structurally sound. There's no cracks. There's no splits or anything. So structurally it's sound, and that's really the main thing, really. Now I don't know if it's been refretted. That I can't tell. Quite possibly it has, but it might not have been. I don't know. Bearing in mind the frets are generally not that tall anyway on a jazz guitar. So, but it has a really, it has a beautiful sound. So it's a really nice acoustic sound. These are 12 flat wounds. This guitar I think would favour 13 round wounds, which I may put on this guitar. I only had 12 flats available, so that's why they're on there. Now this is a strange amber colour, and it could have been because the previous owner was a heavy smoker, but can't seem to smell any nicotine, so therefore it's oxidized. The nitro has oxidized and turned the guitar into this rather nice light amber color. Now you'll probably thinking, what is this burnt piece of wood patch here? This is from the pickguard, which, as you can see, it has gassed inside the case. Quite often happens with these type of pickguards. And I think they're made from formaldehyde or something, some crazy chemical, the plastics. But you can see like the knob has just literally fallen through the scratch plate. The pickup seems to be intact, but this is actually what was offered in the late 80s, early 90s, which was a double humbucker. But you notice it has got no pole piece to alter. So this may be the time to change this pickup to a diamond, and also put a more like the stepped Guild original scratch plate, which George Benson's, I think he had a 60s Guild, would have featured. So that might be a good excuse to do that. Nonetheless, it's the bridge is original, which is an ebony bridge, and this tailpiece is original as well, and it's kind of tarnished in a cool way. The Grover Imperials are original, so everything's really original on the guitar. Nothing's been replaced. And that's the output jack there. As you can see, it's all solid wood, solid sides, solid top, solid back, with a stripe of walnut. And in the 90s ones, they put 4 cleats, which are tiny bits of wood to hold that walnut together, because especially the Gibson guitars of the age were prone to split. So this particular, the 90s ones, had 4 bits of little bits of wood to tie the 2 bits of wood together. You can see that actually on the Guild forum. There's somebody that's gone inside a 90s one with a camera, and I think you can see that. But yeah, beautiful piece of wood. That's and on the back of the neck as well. Nice bit of flame maple there. Ebony board looks good. Now I don't know if this has been refretted or not. My suspicion is it has been refretted, because you can see here it's quite white, but there it's very yellow. So something's happened there. I don't know. Maybe it's been refretted. Who knows? And they've got the beautiful pearloid markers here, and they incrementally go smaller and smaller. So you've got a small little triangle there, as opposed to here. And then the original truss rod, Art Deco inlay here, which says Artist Award. I guess that would have said Johnny Smith, which was only 1 year they made the Johnny Smith model, and then it got turned into the Artist Award. And I think the argument that Johnny Smith had with Guild was over this bit here, which is, I don't know if you can see that, it's like a Les Paul in the binding and the cutaway. I think that was what the argument was, something about the top. But I can't exactly remember, because, you know, the kind of DNA of this guitar starts with Johnny Smith's D'Angelico, which Johnny Smith loved, and then he wanted, you know, Guild to kind of produce something like that. But then, you know, obviously Guild is coming from Epiphone, because when Epiphone moved from New York, a lot of the workers went to Guild. So that's why a lot of the appointments and features on such as the fret markers, kind of originate historically from Guild. From Epiphone, you know. And in some ways, Guild was a continuation of Epiphone, you know, really restylized, of course. But yeah, I mean, just the playability. The neck is, this particular neck is not fat at all. It's not a fat neck, but it's wider. It has the width, you know, because I think there's some Artist Awards from the 70s that had a narrow nut. I don't know if that's for a fact, or the necks were very thin, but this is not a fat neck. I would say this is a medium neck. You know, it's not thin, but it's certainly not fat. It's just that it's a really nice shape, because I think there's a compromise. If you're going to make the nut width wider, then you don't want to have it too fat, because you don't want to have a massive fat neck and a wide nut width. That's gonna, you know, it's gonna make things difficult, because you really want to get your thumb over to do, you know, these kind of chords. Which is so if you're going for D minor, G13 flat 9, which I like to get my thumb over the neck for that. Or from the D minor, you know, those kind of movements are really nice with your thumb over the neck. So, you know, you don't want your thumb to be, you know, hurting at the joint, because you've got a fat neck and it's wide. So this is just really put the perfect compromise. And the great thing about them is, almost like a really great amplifier, it really does articulate the notes really well. So your playing has to be really precise and clean, which is great to practice on. So even if you play like, you know, you're a rock guitar player, you know, owning a jazz guitar can really sort of help your playing, you know, in many, many different ways. So it's always, I recommend, you know, if you're, you know, 100% rock, 100% blues, you know, get an Archtop, because it's can only help you, you know, with your studies on guitar. Also, you know, you've got players like Duke Robillard. Great player. I think he played in the Room Full of Blues. But Duke Robillard plays these huge Epiphones, old vintage Epiphones, and I think he even plays like the modern reissue Epiphones, you know. And he plays blues on them, man. So you know what I mean. You can still play the blues, and many did, such as T-Bone Walker on his ES5. So you know. The Archtop does have a place for blues, and yeah, they're just great. They're just great. I mean, I think for me, they're the epitome of design, really, for guitar. You know, it's like all the features of hundreds of years of instrument making has gone into the Archtop design. You know, like the way the bridges, you know, the bridges cast, and the, you know, you can obviously get. You know, I like the ebony. I like to have an ebony bridge on an Archtop, but you can have an ABR, whatever it's called, Nashville type bridge, or a Gibson metal bridge. You know, which might be, you know, if you're playing country music, then that's going to be better to have, in my opinion. You know, it's probably more the sounds you want. But for jazz, you know, the ebony bridge is really the best idea, in my opinion. And you know, the F holes. These are the traditional F holes, and the spruce top, 2-piece spruce top. Is that 2-piece? Yeah, 2-piece spruce top, 2-piece back, 3.5-inch sides. That's really your standard jazz archtop for me, with the floating pickup. You know, to have the floating pickup, because then nothing is actually touching the top except the bridge, obviously, which you need for the transference of vibration from the string to the top. But you know, which is kind of strange for me, because the L5 has, obviously, the later L5s have 2 humbuckers drilled into the body, but an L5 is exactly the same pretty much as this guitar here. You know, it's a different, less ornate headstock, obviously, but ebony fretboard, long scale. You know, it's basically the same single cutaway, and but with 2 humbuckers in here, and kind of makes you wonder why Gibson did that, because you know, on a traditionally you would get, for example, if I show you this guitar here, for example, this is a Fender, and this is a 16-inch, so you can see the difference between a 17-inch and a 16. So this is 17-inch, this is 16. This is just under 3 inches. This is 3.5 inches. They're actually, these are both long scale. This is based off of a D'aquisto. D'aquisto was the apprentice of D'Angelico, and you can see his appointments, which is the carved ebony bridge, and the F holes with. You can see that this is the more traditional F hole design, and this has just a line going through. It doesn't have the same pointy. It's not mirrored. Can you see that? And it has a humbucker, because this is a laminate guitar. Beautiful as it is, it's still it's just a laminate box, you know. And I mean, the difference, you probably can't hear it in the room, but this is 3 times as loud as this one, you know. But for good reason, because on a gig, players like Jim Hall, who famously played a D'aquisto, very similar to this guitar, he didn't want, you know, he didn't want feedback. So this is where this comes in, and a lot of people, you know, like Jimmy Bruno. You know, if you don't know Jimmy Bruno, check out Jimmy Bruno, amazing player. Jimmy Bruno played a D'aquisto, Fender D'aquisto actually. But you know, as Jimmy Bruno will tell you, you know, you need a guitar, you know, that doesn't want to feed back, because these ones, you know, these are sometimes a struggle. You know, I play in a bebop duo. This is fine for that, but if you're playing with a drummer in that, you're maybe gonna have problems with one of these, you know. But that's why you got a humbucker in the body of a laminate guitar. Whereas the solid body guitars, you really want a floating pickup so that you can take advantage, you know, of the whole acoustic qualities of a solid wood guitar, as this one is. And this guitar here is actually based on a D'aquisto Jazz Special, and there's I've done a whole video on that, which you might find interesting, and it has its also linked to the Swedish guitar company, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, that's the history of this one, and they're both great guitars to have. You know, sometimes if you're playing with a drummer, I'm going to be taking this one. If I'm playing a blues, a more of an acoustic blues thing, I'll take this guitar. You know, but if it's a low volume situation, I'm going to take this one. You know, and around the house, you know, this one here really you know, you can play this one acoustically in the home, but it's not that inspiring, you know, because it's not very loud. I mean, I'll give you an example. So this is this one here, acoustically. Okay, so now we're going to listen to the Artist Award. So you can instantly see that this is just much bigger, and you can practice. You don't need an amp. You know, anyone who owns an Artist Award, I can bet you any money, at home they won't be playing this with an amplifier, because you do not need an amplifier with this. You know, this is easily loud enough, and you really enjoy the acoustic qualities of a proper jazz archtop when you have an all solid body guitar with a floating pickup. You know, So there you go. That's a little review of my new acquisition. It looks like I have to do some work, fellas and ladies out there. Any advice you can give me is going to be much appreciated. But I'm going to be working to get a new scratch plate for this and a new pickup. I don't know if I'm going to keep the original one or change it to a diamond, like it should be. It should really. This guitar needs a diamond. You know, this is the history of the Artist Award. I think in some ways it's a crime to put anything else other than a diamond, because this George Benson played it with a diamond, so the rest of us has to follow suit, really. But there you go. That's the Guild Artist Award, and I will be back soon with some history videos coming up real soon. Take care, guys. All the best.